September 1943, Camp Concordia, Kansas. The prairie wind cuts across endless wheat fields, carrying the scent of autumn harvest and the distant sound of marching boots. 22-year-old Wilhelm Kerner stands behind the barbed wire, his Wehrmacht uniform now bearing the white PW letters on the back. The Afrika Korps veteran from Munich squints against the Kansas sun, so different from the scorching African desert where British forces captured him just months ago. His stomach growls, a sound that has become constant since his homeland began rationing bread to 200 grams per person. Was es das? Wilhelm whispers to his bunkmate Klaus, pointing toward the mess hall where American guards wheel out massive steel containers. The aroma hits them like a physical force. Roasted beef, real butter, fresh vegetables. Wilhelm's mouth waters involuntarily. In his last letter from home, smuggled through Red Cross channels, his mother Greta wrote about standing in line for 4 hours to receive their family's weekly egg ration, 2 eggs to feed 5 people. She mentioned neighbors fainting from hunger, elderly couples sharing single slices of ersatz bread made from sawdust and potato peels. The American mess sergeant, a cheerful man from Iowa named Joe Patterson, calls out in broken German, "Abendessen, dinner time." Wilhelm clutches the metal tray, hardly believing its weight as it fills with portions that would feed his entire family back home. A thick slice of white bread with real butter, mashed potatoes heaped high, beef steak, actual beef with gravy, canned peaches and syrup, fresh milk, not the thin blue liquid that passed for milk in wartime Munich. Klaus stares at his plate, tears forming in his eyes. Mein Gott, Wilhelm, my little sister. She hasn't seen meat like this in 2 years. But Wilhelm feels something darker stirring in his chest. A terrible question that he cannot voice, cannot even fully form in his mind. Why are the Americans feeding us, their enemies, better than we fed ourselves? The prairie wind picks up, rustling the wheat beyond the fence. Wilhelm takes his first bite of American abundance, unaware that this meal contains more calories than most German civilians see in 3 days. October 1943, March 1944. The revelation builds slowly, meal by magnificent meal. Wilhelm learns to navigate his strange new world with the methodical precision that made him a good soldier. Each morning brings the same impossible bounty: eggs, bacon, fresh bread, real coffee with sugar. The German POWs joke nervously among themselves, calling it Amerikanische propaganda. Surely this abundance is temporary, designed to weaken their resolve. But weeks pass, then months. The food never stops coming. Dr. Margaret Chen, a nutritionist from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, arrives at Camp Concordia in November to conduct a study on prisoner nutrition. Her clipboard holds precise calculations. Each German POW receives 4,000 calories daily, meeting Geneva Convention requirements that prisoners eat the same rations as American soldiers. 4,000 Kalorien? Wilhelm overhears her explaining to the camp commander through a translator. 4,000 calories. The number seems impossible. Before the war, during peacetime in Germany, Wilhelm never ate more than 2,800 calories per day. The psychological weight of abundance begins crushing Wilhelm's worldview. He watches his fellow prisoners, hardened soldiers who survived the hell of North Africa, grow soft and heavy. Hans Müller, a panzer commander from Berlin, gains 30 pounds in 4 months. Ich werde fett wie ein amerikanisches Schwein, he laughs darkly. I'm getting fat like an American pig. The contradiction gnaws at Wilhelm during the long Kansas nights. American guards share cigarettes with German prisoners. They talk about their own brothers fighting overseas, about rationing back home. But their rationing means no sugar for coffee, not choosing between bread and fuel to heat their homes. In December, Wilhelm receives another letter from his mother. The paper is thin, nearly transparent, reused from some official document. Her handwriting shakes. Mein lieber Wilhelm, we received potatoes for Christmas. Actual potatoes, not the ersatz ones made from turnips. Your father cried when he saw them. Frau Weber next door collapsed from hunger last week. The doctor says her heart simply stopped. We are managing, but please pray for us. That same evening, the camp serves Christmas dinner. Roasted turkey with stuffing, cranberry sauce, mashed potatoes with gravy, green beans, apple pie, and real cream. Wilhelm stares at his plate, calculating frantically. This single meal contains more nutrition than his family has seen in weeks. The breaking point arrives in March 1944. Wilhelm volunteers for kitchen duty, hoping to understand the scale of American food distribution. In the storage warehouse, he encounters something that stops his heart. Rows upon rows of food supplies stretching beyond sight. Pallets of canned meat, mountains of flour sacks, cases of canned fruit, blocks of butter, sides of beef hanging in refrigerated storage. American Supply Sergeant Tommy Rodriguez from Texas notices Wilhelm's stunned expression. Through gestures and broken German, Tommy explains the supply system. Camp Concordia receives regular shipments from across America. Beef from Texas, wheat from Kansas, dairy from Wisconsin, fruit from California. Plenty, plenty. Tommy grins, spreading his arms wide. America makes too much food, too much for everyone. That night, Wilhelm cannot sleep. He calculates obsessively. If each prisoner receives 4,000 calories daily, and Camp Concordia holds 4,027 prisoners at peak capacity, that means the Americans are providing over 16 million calories daily to feed their enemies. German soldiers who tried to kill American soldiers just months ago. Meanwhile, in Berlin, his mother's latest letter reports bread rations cut to 150 grams per person. Elderly people dying in the streets. Children with bloated stomachs from malnutrition, their faces gaunt and ancient. The mathematical impossibility haunts Wilhelm. American abundance seems infinite, effortless, casual. Guards throw away leftover food rather than let prisoners hoard it. Entire loaves of bread go to waste, while his neighbors in Munich search garbage bins for potato peels. Wilhelm begins asking dangerous questions, first to himself, then quietly to other prisoners. If America can feed 400,000 German POWs across their country with such ease, what kind of industrial power are they fighting? What kind of society produces such wealth that feeding their enemies becomes routine? As winter melts into spring across the Kansas prairie, Wilhelm feels something fundamental shifting inside him. The man who entered Camp Concordia as a proud Wehrmacht soldier, convinced of German superiority, now faces a truth too massive to ignore. America isn't just winning the war through military strength. They're winning through abundance itself. May 8th, 1945. VE Day. The moment of devastating revelation. The news arrives like a thunderclap across Camp Concordia. Germany has surrendered. The war is over. Wilhelm Kerner stands in the camp courtyard with 4,000 other German prisoners, watching American guards celebrate with genuine joy. Not the cruel satisfaction of conquerors, but the relief of men who can finally go home. Camp Commander Colonel James Harrison addresses the assembled prisoners in careful German, his voice carrying across the silent prairie, Der Krieg ist vorbei. Sie werden nach Hause geschickt. The war is over. You will be sent home. But Wilhelm's attention fixes on something else entirely. Dr. Margaret Chen has returned to Camp Concordia, this time accompanied by a team of Red Cross officials and war correspondents documenting the repatriation process. In her hands, she carries a thick folder of nutritional data, 2 years of meticulous record-keeping about German prisoner diets. When Edward R. Murrow, the famous CBS correspondent, interviews Dr. Chen on camera, Wilhelm positions himself within earshot, his English now fluent enough to understand every devastating word. Dr. Chen, can you summarize the nutritional status of German prisoners in American camps? Mr. Murrow, our data shows that German POWs in American facilities received an average of 4,000 calories daily, the same rations as American soldiers. This exceeded pre-war German military rations by approximately 500 calories per day. Most prisoners gained significant weight during captivity. And how does this compare to the German civilian population during the war? Dr. Chen's pause feels eternal. Wilhelm's heart hammers against his ribs as she opens her folder, revealing charts and graphs that will destroy his world. According to Allied intelligence reports and post-war surveys, German civilians received official rations of 1,250 calories per day from 1943 onwards. In Berlin and other major cities, actual intake often fell below 1,000 calories daily. Our German prisoners were receiving 4 times the nutrition of their own families. The words hit Wilhelm like artillery shells. 4 times. 4 times. The Red Cross official, a Swiss doctor named Klaus Weber, adds clinical details that make Wilhelm's knees buckle. We documented severe malnutrition among German civilians throughout 1944 and 1945. Infant mortality doubled. Elderly mortality increased by 40%. Children showed stunted growth patterns consistent with prolonged starvation. Wilhelm's mind reels through 2 years of impossible abundance. Daily meat rations, fresh vegetables, white bread with butter, sugar for coffee, milk with every meal. He thinks of Hans Muller, the Berlin Panzer commander who gained 30 pounds and joked about becoming fat like an American pig. Hans's wife and children were starving in the ruins of Berlin while he grew plump on American generosity. Mein Gott, Wilhelm realizes with crushing clarity, we ate better as prisoners than as free men. The mathematical horror unfolds relentlessly. Each German POW consumed more daily calories than 3 German civilians combined. Camp Concordia's prisoners ate enough food to sustain 12,000 German children. The breakfast Wilhelm enjoyed this morning, eggs, bacon, toast, jam, coffee with cream, represented more nutrition than his mother received in an entire week. But the revelation cuts deeper than numbers. Wilhelm suddenly understands the casual confidence of his American guards, their easy generosity, their complete lack of fear about feeding enemy soldiers luxurious meals. America possessed such staggering abundance that feeding 425,000 German prisoners across 700 camps represented no burden whatsoever. The realization explodes through Wilhelm's consciousness. Germany hadn't just lost the war. They had been fighting a country so wealthy that caring for their enemies was effortless. Dr. Chen continues her interview. American agricultural production during wartime actually increased. We produced enough surplus food to feed not only our own military and civilian population, but also hundreds of thousands of enemy prisoners, millions of Allied civilians in liberated territories, and still maintain robust export programs. Wilhelm staggers backward, overwhelmed by the scale of American power. This isn't military strength. It's civilizational supremacy. While German children scraped lichen from trees to make soup, America casually discarded leftover meat from prisoner meals. The camp falls silent as prisoners absorb the implications. Wilhelm sees the same stunned recognition in Klaus's eyes, in Hans's face, in the expressions of thousands of men who thought they were warriors for the fatherland, but now realize they were merely undernourished soldiers from a starving nation that challenged a giant. Klaus Weber, his bunkmate, whispers the question that haunts every man present. Warum haben sie uns so gut behandelt? Why did they treat us so well? Wilhelm knows the answer with terrible clarity. Because they could. Because American abundance made kindness to enemies as natural as cruelty would have been necessary in Germany. As the afternoon sun blazes across the Kansas prairie, Wilhelm Kerner, Wehrmacht veteran, faithful soldier of the Reich, defender of German superiority, feels his entire worldview collapse into dust. The war wasn't lost on battlefields in Russia or Africa or Normandy. It was lost the moment Germany challenged a nation that could feed its enemies better than Germany fed its own children. The abundance around him suddenly seems obscene, shameful, devastating. Every meal he consumed was stolen from the mouths of German families. Every calorie was proof of American mercy and German delusion. Wilhelm's war is over, but his reckoning with the truth has just begun. June 1946. Wilhelm's return to a devastated Munich reveals the full scope of his transformed understanding. The train from Le Havre carries Wilhelm Kerner through landscapes of rubble and ruin. German cities lie flattened, their populations hollow-eyed and skeletal. In Frankfurt, children with stick-thin arms and distended bellies beg for cigarettes to trade for food. These are the faces that haunted his dreams during those abundant months in Kansas, the invisible cost of every American meal he consumed. Munich Station is unrecognizable. Wilhelm searches desperately through crowds of displaced persons until he spots a figure so changed that he almost passes by. His mother Greta, aged 20 years and 3, her frame so reduced that her clothes hang like funeral shrouds. Their reunion is wordless, terrible. Greta's hands shake as she touches her son's face, still rounded from American nutrition, still healthy-looking despite his recent weight loss on the journey home. The contrast between them tells the entire story of the war. "Du siehst gut aus, mein Sohn," she whispers. "You look well, my son." The simple observation carries devastating weight. Wilhelm looks well because America fed him better than Germany fed its own people. In the following months, as Wilhelm rebuilds his life in occupied Munich, he becomes an unlikely ambassador of American memory. In quiet conversations with other returning POWs, he shares the mathematical truth that changes everything. Their captors possess such overwhelming abundance that generosity to enemies required no sacrifice. Hans Müller, the former Panzer commander, becomes Wilhelm's closest confidant in processing this revelation. Both men struggle with guilt over their comfortable captivity while their families starved. "We were fed like kings while our children ate grass soup," Hans says during one of their long walks through Munich's ruins. But Wilhelm's transformation runs deeper than guilt. His experience in America revealed the fundamental delusion that drove German aggression, the belief that they were fighting for survival against equals. Instead, they had challenged a civilization so wealthy that feeding 425,000 enemy prisoners was merely an administrative detail. This understanding reshapes Wilhelm's entire philosophy. He studies American agricultural reports, learning that U.S. food production actually increased during wartime while German civilians starved. The Marshall Plan, which brings American aid to rebuild Europe, confirms what Wilhelm learned in Kansas. American abundance isn't temporary wartime wealth. It's the natural state of their society. Wilhelm dedicates his remaining years to documenting POW experiences, collecting testimonies from men who shared his revelation. His memoir, Gefangen in Amerika, Die Wahrheit über unsere Gefangenschaft, Captive in America, The Truth About Our Imprisonment, becomes essential reading for Germans trying to understand their defeat. The book's central thesis revolutionizes German understanding of the war. They weren't defeated by superior military strategy alone, but by a civilization that operated on a completely different scale of human possibility. Modern relevance. Wilhelm's story illuminates how abundance, not just military power, determines global conflicts. Today's food security challenges, international aid programs, and economic diplomacy all trace back to this fundamental lesson. The nation that can effortlessly feed its enemies possesses power beyond conventional military strength. Wilhelm Kerner died in 1987, but his final words to his grandson captured the war's deepest truth. Sie haben uns nicht besiegt, Enkelkind. Sie haben uns gezeigt, was möglich ist. They didn't defeat us, grandson. They showed us what was possible. The prairie winds of Kansas had carried more than the scent of wheat. They carried the seeds of a new world order, planted in the hearts of men who discovered that their enemies' mercy exceeded their homeland's love.